were joined again by Azfar, and yeah, we probably not as happy as we thought we'd be after a disappointing World Cup from Bangladesh. I think our pre-tournament hopes were quite different to what actually happened. So we're here to break that down piece by piece, see what went wrong, how they could fix it, and what's in the future for Bangladesh. They played 5 games. They lost all 5. They had 2 close encounters with West Indies and Sri Lanka, probably choked those. We'll go through that more in detail. And last 2 games, they got blown away, absolutely blown away by South Africa and Australia. I think we should go through their prep because there's been a lot of discussion about should they make those spin-friendly decks? Did they just do that to win the bilateral series? Was that really good World Cup preparation? So I want to get your take on that, since you probably know more than I do, I guess, about their personal home conditions and the setup. And yeah, I guess, what do you think of that whole situation?
Sure. Thanks, Naja and Naba, for having me in your show. This interesting point that you raised. Obviously, our World Cup dreams were all shattered because of the way they performed. I think as Bangladeshis, people, tend to maybe over expect at times. Sometimes, they need to understand to the level that our team, or we need to understand where to draw the line. So when it comes to preparations, I don't think 2 series were ever enough to prepare for a World Cup. You just call 2 teams to play at your backyard, and you sort of do your measurement of the performance, or you do your preparation just with those 2 series. It's irrespective of what sort of decks you prepare in those 2 series. That wouldn't help you win a World Cup, right? That's number 1.
Yeah.
Now, number 2 is, people obviously have been arguing about the Mirpur deck, but no one's taken into consideration that, these 2 series have gone within the monsoon season, and there are torrential downpours in Bangladesh, and it's close to impossible to prepare, flat wickets, what you call. And everyone understands cricket, and everyone should know why I'm saying it's not possible to prepare competitive wickets during the monsoon season. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer to actually discuss wickets. What's important is to discuss whether we could have prepared much earlier than the New Zealand and the Australia series, or if that logic comes to play, then you should have seen Shakib and Mustafiz perform the best, because they were in the UAE playing IPL, right? So they haven't done that. So there's just a whole lot of things that needs to be discussed before we can pinpoint what's wrong with Bangladesh cricket. And I would like to clearly say is that our infrastructure is not great enough. It's just nowhere. We don't have power hitters. We don't have the structure in our domestic cricket to actually facilitate what needs to be done in T20 cricket. We never concentrated on T20 cricket. We never concentrated on Test cricket, and Test cricket is a completely different ballgame, which I don't know if you want to discuss today. But if the focus is the World T20, it's just not those 2 series. It has to go into the domestic structure. It has to go into cricket operation. It has to go into the selection panels. It has to go into who is in charge of game development. It has to go into the coaching panels. There's a whole lot of discussion. So in a nutshell, if you ask me, I wouldn't say that those 2 series can determine why Bangladesh has failed. Those 2 series cannot determine, because if you see Bangladesh, they should have performed well with the Australia game, because that was a good batting deck, but they didn't. So even if you had a complete run fest in Mirpur, it didn't warrant Bangladesh's best performance in the World Cup. So let's just move that out of the way.
Yeah, I think you make some pretty good points. I think a good parallel would be how England's setup has set them up for a really successful campaign. Pakistan as well, those 2 teams. I guess the surprising one is India not performing, but that happens in World Cup sometimes.
100%.
Of course, but they're still coming back strong at the end. So yeah, they still do decent.
I think this is another point that I raised with someone in a discussion, that if you thought making the best preparation for a team is to play in the UAE to ensure that the team wins the World Cup, then India should have been champions by now,
Yeah,
or they should have been booked for
exactly.
semis already. So,
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
cricket is a funny game, but the dynamics of Bangladesh cricket is a little bit different. And I'm saying different because it must not be like that, but it is. It is what it is. Bangladesh players, they somehow they struggle to find confidence when they lose momentum. They sort of can't trust themselves to go to the next level, and that's an issue. Of course, that's an
Yeah.
issue. But
Mhm.
what people don't point out is, as much as the player should take a blame for the disappointing World Cup campaign, people who are playing outside the field should take the blame as well. There were board members who went in front of the TV and they started bad mouthing the players from the loss of Scotland. So, I mean, those things, if you as a board member, you advise something to team management to, enforce on the field, it can be just a discussion behind closed doors. It doesn't have to come to the media, right?
Yeah.
And then there are talks of what's happening behind the scenes. The coach is known for the wrong reasons now. Apparently, he's trying to make a whole new differentiation with the experienced players such as Mushfiq to, let's say, the young guns. So he's apparently in a mission to eliminate the most experienced players of Bangladesh, and that's a rumor, or that could be a rumor, or that could be the truth. But that's what the national media is heavily elaborating on. So once you have a coaching panel who's trying to create that divide in the team, and it is impossible for a cricket team to perform in that way, because as cricket, it's a team game. So even if you can be the best captain, you can be the best player, but it doesn't necessarily warrant that your team's going to perform. And if you were to assess everyone's performance, I think Taskin's the one who outperformed everyone even in batting, he did well with that many batsmen. So if you wanted Taskin could win you the World Cup, no, it doesn't happen in cricket like that. There's just so many things. I mean, if you talk about Bangladesh's preparation, then I would say Bangladesh should have taken 20 people in the squad. Why did BCB had to only had 15 people in the squad? Maybe 15, I think, if I'm not wrong. And then a couple of people got injured. Now you're playing with 13. And if the tournament was a bit longer than what it was, then you never know. You would have only 11 to pick from. And then comes to the question where people were saying, how long would Litton play? But who would you play in place of Litton? Because they haven't taken anyone. And in the last
There's no depth in the squad. Yeah,
exactly. In the last 20 years, Bangladesh produced Tamim Iqbal, Bangladesh produced Sharia Nafis, Anamul Haq, then Liton Das, Soumya Sarkar, Imrul Kais. That's the sixth name that comes into my mind. All those six players, including Tamim Iqbal, were heavily criticized every single point of time. If Tamim Iqbal didn't perform this World Cup, people would be writing, big essays everywhere. So every time we tend to go back to our old options. We never go back. We never think forward. What did Shakib say in the media, to the media? That, we want to reach the semifinals. But Virat Kohli would never say we want to reach the semifinals. Virat Kohli would go and say, we are here to win the World Cup. So it's the thought process, it's the mentality that needs to change in Bangladesh cricket. And I firmly believe that these series of losses can be a blessing in disguise, because now you can see that the management is actually thinking on what to do. Now, it's not like they have never thought on how to do things. It's not like I'm questioning their judgment. But what I think is there was just poor planning. If you are a selector and you've spent 12 years in the same role, and your credibility is just, reaching maybe the super 12s of a T20 World Cup, then obviously you have to be accountable for your position, right? And if you think of you yourself in a workplace, you'd have performance reviews every year. So as much as the players are accountable for it, but I think it comes from the top-down approach. Everyone has to take ownership of these losses, just like everyone takes credit for the wins in your own backyard. What Bangladesh cricket suffers is poor umpiring in domestic circuits. I have heard rumors that, certain players would go in and never get out, given out LBW. There would be a blind eye for a clean catch. I have heard stories, crazy stories that, the bowler bowled from behind the stumps. It was still called a no ball because someone who had a strong lobby was playing against that particular team. So as long as these things are eliminated in Bangladeshi domestic circuit, you can never expect Bangladesh to win a World Cup. And the Under-19 Cricket World Cup was probably our good luck, I would say. It was good vision. And why not employ the people who are giving to you cricket? There are people like Salahuddin, there are people like Nazmul Ahmedin Fahim who are actually willing to work for our cricket. But BCB turns a blind eye for them. All the players have high regard for them. Why don't you give them 1.5 years to 2 years time, or give them some important role to play a good part, a key role in Bangladesh cricket? Why not give them a go? But no one seems to have the guts to give them a go. People are always thinking we need to go outside of Bangladesh. We need to go chase coaches outside of Bangladesh. That's not an issue. But what you need to understand, what everyone needs to understand is not every coach will suit to the system. If you see Hathore Singha, he completely molded the team to a strategy that where Bangladesh's curve was going upwards. Now, he went to Sri Lanka and Sri Lanka saw no success. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean he's a bad coach. It means the way he wanted to do things just suited to the way Bangladesh plays cricket. And same as Jamie Siddons, when Tamim Iqbal broke into the scene in international cricket, he could barely play in the leg side. There was Mushfiqur Rahim who was struggling to find form. There was Shakib Al Hassan who was trying to, and Riyadh as well. What did they do? Jamie Siddons worked with all of them personally. So Jamie Siddons was interested to be a batting coach. What did the BCB do? They employed Ashwell Prince. Why? Because they couldn't keep up to all the demands that Jamie Siddons wanted. Just give the guy whatever he wants because he's here to work for you and he is dedicated worker. And then what does the BCB do? They give Russell Domingo 15,000 USD per month, and this is what he returns to you. And apparently his contract is yet to be signed. He's apparently, if you say goodbye to him, you have to pay him 2 years worth of salary. So these are all the errors that the cricket operations and also the game developments in the domestic circuit, they're doing day in, day out. And now I know that Bangladesh are moving towards changing their entire coaching panel. They're moving towards, employing people with, team director roles and, given people, the president has obviously allocated different things to the people to, work on. I really hope that this is something new to Bangladesh. This brings in some rewards to Bangladesh cricket, in all honesty, because I think these losses were required, and this would probably start changing the thought process. You never prepare your international games, the wickets that you use in international games necessarily to prepare for a World Cup. You need to prepare for World Cup maybe a couple of years in advance, where you start playing in those pitches in the practice nets, you start playing in those pitches in the domestic circuit, and then anyone can come to your backyard and you can play in your own pitch. That's not an issue, because if you think that as a professional cricketer, you going to Oman about 14 days before the World Cup started and you still can't get used to the climate, and you can't still get used to the conditions, then you seriously need to harness your skills before you play international cricket. International cricket is ever changing. You might have to go to South Africa, you might have to go to West Indies, you might have to go to India to play, and it doesn't mean, oh, we don't play in these pitches so we can't win a World Cup. No, it doesn't happen like that. So there's a whole lot of things that's going on in Bangladesh cricket, and when we criticize, we need to criticize using the right ammunition, using the right words. We need to make sure we have meaningful discussions around it, so that it's not just trolling people. We just need to have those constructive discussions to make sure that our cricket improves.
Yeah. We'll get to the trolling soon,
Yeah.
but I think a big thing to mention is that for me personally, I'd see the under-19 team compared to the international team. The international team was a fearful team, while the under-19s team was a fearless team. That was the difference for me. Their preparation was, both of them were not that, they were pretty decent for both, but they were fearless against even India under-19s. But the actual team seemed, they're pretty scared at the end against the South African Australian bowlers. They didn't seem to, like, they seemed to be running a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a very interesting point. Fearless cricket, and I think we lack that. And I think we just did not learn how to play T20 cricket. That's number one. We just did not. We're still in one day mentality where we say, let's look at the ball for 5 overs, let's play it out, and then we'll take chance maybe 5 to 10 overs, and then if there's a fall of wickets, we start hitting from 15 to 20 overs. No, it's go time from ball one. First 6 overs, you want to pick up 40 to 45 runs, and then you can, take a back seat, wait out, and then you go for the final launch. If you look at the amount of dot balls we have played, it doesn't necessarily mean if that Mirpur wicket was a run fest, that you would improve that cricket. If you can just improve your cricket overnight. These are things that needs to be taught, or that needs to be spread out. That okay, so these 0 to 5 overs, this is how much we're targeting. 5 to 10 overs, this is how much we're targeting. And then if you lose wickets on the way, this is what we do. I think they were also lacking in confidence. I think a player such as Mushfiqur Rahim, he has so much experience behind his back. Why would you have to play those scoop shots when you're set, when you know that you could easily get a single of that ball and maybe you can launch later on, but it's just planning. And I think
I mean, I think like the thing was with like Mushfiqur, like obviously he did have that one innings where he batted well, but the thing was the lack of intensity from a lot of the other players probably put a lot of pressure on him to try to lift the scoring rate, because there's not even singles coming during phases of play. And that's probably what led him to try to force the issue by playing 100%. These shots that he probably wouldn't play 100%. Until the 15th, 16th over. It's just
I tend to agree with you partially, but I think we've seen Mushfiqur Rahim get out way too many times with the reverse sweep, with the scoop shot. So when you know that your top order is not firing, and you could easily score those boundary. If you can't hit
a less riskier option,
less risk shot. Your top order, your middle order is not performing that well, and when you've got runs in your bat, people would expect you to carry the innings till the 20th over. So I think fearless is obviously one aspect of it, but number two is that strategy. We have failed every time. In the Sri Lanka game, if you've seen, if statistics matter one little bit, you would have seen that every team won in that ground chasing, but we decided to bat first. I think we were 20 runs short because it was absolutely a belter. So I think strategies, these things come from your coach, strategies and in your senior players. Now, if they can't, put a strategy in place to win a game, then where the problem is. And you cannot just make someone, you can't brush fire someone for not winning your World Cup or not winning your game. So Riyadh is obviously on the front face of it. Now, I understand that his captaincy might have lacked in the World Cup, but you also have to understand what the environment in the team dressing room is. I think everyone from the outside felt that there's something wrong in the dressing room that's going on, and that's impacting your cricket. After the loss of Scotland, obviously, there were a few officials from the BCB, saying whatever they did not need to say. And then the players came back in front of the media, and now they said, we are committed, we play with painkillers, etc., and all that stuff. So there was, they were fighting with using the media as a medium and communicating their rage to the board members. And so all these things, and then you got players' wives who are coming in and putting in big statuses in the middle of a tournament. So I mean, there's just so many things happening outside the field, and that doesn't help you in cricket. Like if you don't sleep before a big game, you never perform the next day. You may if you're a gun player, but more than likely you will not perform. So why? It's because it's a mental game. You're mentally not fit. And I don't think Bangladeshi players were mentally fit this World Cup. They have all the skills, they have all the abilities, but they're just not
Yeah.
mentally fit.
It's the calm before the storm. Things aren't as